Men need men, and women need to quit being threatened by that. Today, we're talking about men. A few weeks ago, we talked about women. Today, we're going to be talking about men. We're going to be looking at some verses that are specifically about men and male relationships that I found to be interesting. There are, of course, going to be a few people who say that women shouldn't be talking about men, which is a funny thing for straight men to say. Actually, what women see as masculine is incredibly relevant if you're trying to attract a woman instead of a dude. And likewise, what men have to say about what they're attracted to in the feminine is entirely relevant if you're trying to attract a dude instead of a chick. So, this idea that everyone is supposed to shut up because some people out there are just too fragile to handle other people's opinions doesn't mean they have to agree with those other opinions, but the fact that you can't handle their existence, I think most people are pretty much over that. So those people are welcome to go on making those arguments, and they can order their life around those choices. There's an X up in the corner of the screen. If you think that nothing a woman has to say can contribute to the conversation, click it, and I promise you, you won't hear a thing. We're going to have the conversation without you. So if you're male or female at this point, and you're open to hearing the thoughts of another human being and evaluating them, congratulations on being an adult. Here we go. You're probably going to recognize this first verse. It's one of the more famous verses out of the Proverbs. In fact, whether you've ever read the Bible or not, you're probably going to recognize it. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. This is a piece of wisdom from Solomon, who wrote the Proverbs. This piece of wisdom has been around about 3,000 years at this point. And I found what is being said in the original Hebrew to be even more fascinating. So it's basically saying, in the same way that iron is sharpened with iron, the word indicates not only contact, but being together or even united. So it is implying a common purpose here, that males having common purpose with each other is a good and productive thing. In the same way that iron is sharpened with iron, likewise, one man sharpens another. But what it actually literally says here is literally one man sharpens the face of his friend. The word is not really another, it's friend. And it specifically says sharpens his face. What does that exactly change? Well, let's think about it. The word for face can mean surface, as in like the face of the water, or the surface of the water. It can imply presence, like you're in front of his face, you're in his presence. But, I mean, it typically means exactly what it says, your face. Well, what is your face? Your face is your identity to the world. So literally what it's saying is that what one man does for another is he sharpens the face of his friend. He refines and hones that surface, that exterior, that identity that you present to the world for his companion. That's part of what males do for each other. The reason why young males can be grating, it's not because they're bad people, it's because they have yet to have the surface shaped. They have yet to have the rough edges knocked off by older, wiser men who can show them how to put their best face forward. Not that they're hiding anything under a mask, it's just that you're young, you're enthusiastic, you're full of testosterone, maybe not always the greatest judgment, maybe not always the most productive filter. Not that you're a bad person or you should hide who you are, but we all learn to put our best face forward. I mean, a toddler, adorable as they are, and I love being around them, I mean, they're little barbarians. They will not only say anything, which is usually incredibly humorous, but, I mean, they will bite, kick, do whatever they can get away with. I mean, they're little barbarians. They have to be civilized in learning what other human beings will tolerate, what is acceptable, how to interact with them in ways that don't hurt the other person, don't get a bad reaction towards you. This is part of humanity. And men need this from men. Even in the animal kingdom, you see it. You know, a lot of times when we try to interfere in nature, we create more harm than good. When a certain kind of elephant was trying to go extinct, or not trying to, beginning to go extinct, we wanted to save them, understandably so. Elephants are amazing creatures. But we didn't know what the heck we were doing, and so we bred a bunch of elephants and turned them loose. And this created a problem because these young male elephants started killing the black rhinos, and now the black rhinos were in trouble. And we're like, what is going on? Why are the young elephants going rogue? We eventually came to understand that once young male elephants reach a certain age, they're kicked out of the herd, which is a matriarchy. It's the women, the matriarchs of the herd, and the young. And once the bulls reach a certain age where you ain't a baby no more, you need to be moving on, they are going nuts with testosterone, and they need enough older male elephants to keep them in check. We figured this out, and then we came to understand if there are older male elephants that can create a dominance, they can keep these young males in check and keep them from going rogue and killing black rhinos and doing this sort of stuff until they mature through all the hormonal changes that are going on. Once again, the young male elephants are not bad. This is just a natural part of the process. They're not trying to be terrible. They're just kind of out of control. And I'm not saying that the parallels are exact. What I am saying is that a lot of young people, I mean, this would be true of young women, you can kind of make jerks out of yourself when you're young. You have not yet had the rough edges knocked off. You have not done any trial and error. You have not had experience. You've only had the childhood guidance of your parents. And so you're not putting your best face forward. You can be a little bit know-it-all, a little bit superior and full of yourself. These are the typical things of youth. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're always going to be this way. These are stages that we all went through. And especially in young males, they need other males who are friends, who are trusted, to teach them, to sharpen the face, to show them how you present yourself to the world, not in an inauthentic way, but in a way that is most to your benefit, so that you have a productive life. You don't alienate people without meaning to. You don't come across in a way that you honestly don't mean to. This is what mentorship does. And of course, to a certain extent, women do the same thing for each other, but it's even greater of a need in men. And honestly, men do a better job of it. Women mentor other women. That is true. That is valuable. To a certain extent, we don't do as good of a job of it because women are so concerned, typically, with feelings that we're not always honest with our young women about, well, no, sweetie, I mean, doesn't mean I'm judging you as being a person with no worth, but actually, no, if you go on OnlyFans and turn yourself into a porn star, that is going to not just be a temporary thing. That's going to be something that will have repercussions for the rest of your life. And maybe right now you don't think that matters, but it's going to matter when the nice guy that you actually really do want to be with says, I can't take you home to mom, or, you know what? I want to have kids with a woman who's not gonna, later other kids in school are gonna pull up porn videos of her and torment my children. And you might say, well, I don't care because, if he would have those kind of priorities, it shows he's not the kind of man I want to be with. But you know what? The kind of man you want to be with right now, or think you want to be with right now, may not always be who you want to be with, and you're closing the door on some things, sweetie, that you might want to think really hard about before you permanently close the door on that. Women are not as good as at being honest about these types of things. Men are able to usually say the hard things, and younger men tend to respect that more so than younger women tend to respect advice from older women, or older women being effective in passing on advice. Now, I'm not saying that female mentorship is not important. It is. It's valuable when it can be done successfully. But as I said earlier, today we're talking about men, and this is especially needed among men. Young men need it in order to become men, to be sharpened. Older men need it in order to maximize their feelings of usefulness and productivity. And the fact that there are some women who feel threatened by that, who feel threatened by the idea that there is something that another man can offer your son that you cannot offer as a woman to him in the same way, to the same degree, or that there might be a need for male spaces that, just like you have a girl day with your girlfriends and go out to the salon and whatever, and you go get a massage and you have girl talk and you have brunch, and that's perfectly fine. You need to be willing to give men male spaces and let them have a guy's day and go out with the guys and work on the car and, go out and see an action movie and do whatever they want to do. And just like it's okay for you to tell your guy, you know what, I need this girl day. It's not that I don't love you, but no, you can't tag along. This is a girl's day. You know what, sweetie? It's okay for him to tell you that too. And you need to be an adult and say, okay, if you need a day with the boys, that's understandable. There's times I need a day with the girls, and I am secure enough that I can give you that without needing to be apart every step of the way. And speaking of the impact of female relationships on the male, the two verses that preceded that one, the one about iron sharpening iron, came out of Proverbs 27. It was verse 17. The two verses that came right before that were talking about these very things. They say, a constant dripping on a day of steady rain and a contentious woman are alike. He who would restrain her restrains the wind and grasps oil with his right hand. Okay, what are these verses actually saying to us? Okay, first of all, the comparison that it's making, it's talking about a continually dripping leak. Just the drip, 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 drip. Harassing you and wearing you down is the implication here. It's the kind of dripping that is driving you crazy on a day of pouring rain that's confining you inside. So, the feeling is very much one of going out of your mind with claustrophobia and just the dripping until you just have to get away from it. That is the picture being painted, that you're going to go out into the storm. You've got to get out of here. That and a quarrelsome woman, and the woman here is Isha. That is the word for woman or wife, because there is no distinction in Hebrew between woman and wife. A woman is a wife. And, by the way, the same is true for Ish, man. A man is a husband. These are not two separate ideas. So that constant dripping leak that's harassing you and wearing you down and driving you crazy on a confining day of pouring rain until you have to get away from it. And a quarrelsome woman are equals. They're exactly alike in the scales. And a quarrelsome woman, what exactly is that? Okay, this is talking about a relentless, hounding source of discord. And it's especially talking about an overbearing wife, one who is both judgmental and domineering. A woman who is irritable, nagging, or fretting, and constantly provoked. That kind of woman is the same thing as that just unbearable leak that is going to drive you away. Okay, what about the second verse? Whoever would restrain her restrains the wind and grasps oil with his right hand. Okay, the word there is restrain, yes, but it's more like withhold. It's a word that would be used for treasuring something, as in hiding it. Like Gollum with the ring. Okay, it's my precious. All right, it's that kind of treasuring. It is to withhold it, to store it away, to hide it. Whoever would try to do that with her, meaning whoever is trying to keep her destructive behavior hidden, is delusional. He might as well be trying to do that with the driving energy of the wind, to keep its destructive energy hidden. You can't do it. The wind is going to destroy things, and people are going to see that they're destroyed. There is a certain amount of shame in being around this kind of nagging, domineering, overbearing, constantly provoked, constantly fretting drama queen of a woman. There's a certain shame in that, and it's a shame you're not going to be able to hide, is basically what this is saying. The second part of that, his right hand, that's your dominant hand, is the implication. The word for grasp is really the word for shaking hands. So it's kind of like using your dominant hand to shake hands with oil. You might as well be trying to do that as trying to restrain her, withhold her, hide this behavior from the rest of the world. You're not going to succeed in doing it. If you choose this kind of a woman, this is what you're choosing, and it's going to be out there for everybody to see. Which is why the mentoring is important, so that you have people who are wiser and kind of like, son, you don't love this woman. I understand. I understand she's hot. You don't love this woman. You do not love the way she is treating you, the way she's behaving. You are not going to love it in a few years. Mentorship is important in this whole context. You do need that advice from men who have graduated from the dating scene, who have married, who have had successful marriages that lasted, that did not end in a crash and a divorce and a broken family and, knockdown, drag out in court. You actually do need someone who can say, this path. And that path starts with your choice in the partner. You cannot just make all of the worst choices when it comes to your partner and then think that you are somehow going to Superman the relationship into being a successful one all by yourself. That's an uphill battle. So once again, the mentorship is important. Now, Solomon had more to say on this subject in Ecclesiastes at the end of his life. And it should be noted that in the interim, Solomon was very much a do as I say and not as I do sort of character in the Bible. So Solomon starts out his life writing the Song of Songs. He has a woman. He loves the woman. I mean, they are nauseatingly in love. This is the couple that they're on their honeymoon. The Song of Songs is basically an erotic poem written by a groom during his honeymoon. And it is the kind of couple that it's like, you went to the market and I thought I had died. I longed for you and here you are again. Let's go to bed. You know, I mean, it's that kind of couple, okay? So he is head over heels for this woman. And he decides, you know what? If one is good, 1,000 would be better. And that's exactly what he does. He goes out and he marries 600 wives and he says, not enough. I need 300 concubines. Man dies a broken man. I know, shocker, right? Shocker. Yes. Okay. And at the end of his life, when every course that he has pursued, and he's pursued everything from hedonism to intellectual curiosity to accomplishments and projects and empire building to legacy and, you know, to substance abuse even. You know, it's interesting if you break down Ecclesiastes. He tried it all, man. And at the end of each thing, he's kind of like, it sucks. It sucks, it's empty. You know, when it comes to the things I build, they're not going to last. The person who comes after me, I get no control. I built these things. They're going to be inherited by someone else, and I get no say in what he does with them. He might be a moron. And you know what? I can't control that. So what's the point? The wealth I acquired. Yeah, I acquired it, and someone else is going to spend it. You know? Whoopee. The women, man, they drove me nuts. The legacy? Guess what? You have no say over your legacy. You're remembered by other people, and they're going to remember you however they want to remember you, and once again, you get no say in it. Even when they're being unfair, even when they're remembering you wrong, you're dead. The substance abuse didn't help. The wisdom, the intellectual stuff, it just made me all the more aware of all of this. The dude, I mean, he is walking proof that they did not have Prozac in 950 BC. But still, Ecclesiastes is very useful. You know, if you're going through a midlife crisis or an end-of-life crisis, it can get you through it in 12 chapters or less. It's fantastic. So, in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, I think, yeah, chapter 7, verse 26, he says, "And I discovered, more bitter than death, the woman whose heart is snares and nets, whose hands are chains. One who is pleasing to God will escape from her, but the sinner will be captured by her." Okay, let's look at what he's actually saying in these verses. So, to say that I found out is kind of like saying I uncovered. Wasn't something that was apparent, but in all of my exploration of hedonism, I've uncovered this, that more bitterness than death comes from the woman whose heart, and this is your decision-making heart. A woman whose decision-making heart is actually the restraint of a hunting ground, along with isolating barriers that cut off normal freedom, the way that you would think of fish swimming into a net and it cuts them off from the freedom of the river. It's a barrier that cuts away your freedom and is isolating. And her hands, in this case, it's really implying kind of her arms. The word is hands, but the picture, we would say arms in modern day, are a binding prison. Okay, we know the kind of woman he's talking about here. The kind of woman who is so insecure that Her embrace, her arms are a frickin' prison. She cuts off your freedom. She isolates you from others because her need is so childish. Who treats you like prey in a hunting ground. She does not see you as a human being with needs. You are merely something to trap and corner and cling to. A prison. Whoever beautifully fits the mighty, multifaceted creators, Elohim. Elohim is plural. That's the multifaceted part. El is the mighty part. Elohim is very much tied to creator. So, whoever fits the mighty, multifaceted creator's intention and is being functionally beneficial in the purpose for which he was created, that kind of a person will escape from her. But the one who misses the mark will be caught by her and taken away as her captive. I mean, these are pretty strong images. It's trying to make you see that these choices actually do matter. Not all women are alike. Being deceived into thinking they are all harmless because they are physically weaker is naive. Thinking that you can overlook the clinginess, the tendency to isolate, the self-destructiveness, the dehumanizing hunting for you, especially if she's pretty. You know, just overlook all of this. You're going to pay. You are going to pay. And once again, this is why having male mentors is good, because they have lived this, they have seen it in their friends, they know of what they speak. Now, you don't want to listen to the type of mentor who tells you this is every woman, because it is not. There are plenty of men out there who are married to women who are not like this who can testify to that. The people who tend to tell you that are exactly the kind of men you should not be listening to, because they're the kind of men who believe that only because they made these kinds of choices. And rather than admit that they made a bad choice, it's easier to tell you that that is the only choice that's available, because that removes all onus from them. But that doesn't lead to a good place either, because men and women are actually supposed to live in union in order to be happy. They are supposed to be helpmates to each other. It's a word that embodies the sense of a strong ally. A woman is supposed to be a strong ally who is bringing something to the table. And opposition is not really the right interpretation, but it's a useful opposition. It's like teammates who are training together in a sport. Someone who may be playing against you, the counterpart, the counterweight is really probably the most accurate way of putting it, who's bringing things to the table that you're not, and in so doing is making you better, a better player. Men and women both do this for each other when the relationship is functioning right. Once again, a lot of that starts with making a right choice about who you partner yourself with. If you want to prioritize the hot woman who maybe treats you badly, not that all hot women are going to, but if you make that trade, it is a trade, and you are going to pay for it. And that's the choice you made. Same thing applies to women, obviously, but like I said, today we're talking about men. So, before we move on from this passage in Ecclesiastes, the next couple of verses are interesting as well. It says, "Behold, I have discovered this," says the preacher, adding one thing to another to find an explanation, which I am still seeking, but have not found. I have found one man among 1,000, but I have not found a woman among all of these. Behold, I have found only this, that God made men upright, but they have sought out many devices." This is a very difficult passage to translate, and it's very interesting. So, behold is literally look. It's like someone holding out something that they've found and like, look. This is what I have encountered, says the summoner. Really, it's more of this is not really a preacher because that contains the connotation of preachy. Some other translations say teacher, but that implies strictly a classroom setting. It's not really that either. This is someone who has something public to say. It's really kind of more public speaker, but the emphasis is less on what he has to say and on the fact that he is calling a wide group of people together to hear. So it's a summoner, or you could also say unifier, because it's bringing all these people together to hear what is being said. Assembling one thing onto another and building piece by piece in order to encounter the reckoning of things. This is an interesting word. It encompasses a wide variety of ideas, from the plan, the thinking, the explanation, the calculation. It is very much tied to mathematics, the bill, the account, or even the value. It's really trying to understand the workings of things, which my primal essence, my instinct, still pleads for and pursues, but I fail to encounter one earthling man out of 1,000 that I have encountered. And I have not encountered a true wife among all these either. The question really comes down to, when it says, "but I fail to encounter," is that referring to the earthling man, or is that referring to the things that his primal essence is pursuing, or both? There is no punctuation in Hebrew, so we don't know. That word sits sandwiched between these two ideas, and we're not 100% sure which one it is referring to. So alternatively, another way you could translate that passage is, "which my primal essence still pleads for and pursues, but I fail to discover one earthling out of 1,000 that I have encountered. But I have not encountered a true wife among all of these." Excuse me, I read the wrong translation to you. Okay, so the punctuation would go in a different place. So alternatively, it would be, "which my primal essence still pleads for and pursues, but I fail to discover, comma, one earthling out of 1,000 I have discovered, but I have not discovered a true wife among all of these." So the implication is either he has found, one man, one friend out of 1,000, but not even one woman, or the implication is that he has not found what his primal essence is looking for, not one man out of 1,000, and not one woman either. Goes on to say, "Look, I encountered this alone," which is why I tend to lean with the first interpretation, that he hasn't encountered a man or a woman, because it's saying, this is all I found, which if he had found one man out of 1,000, that fits a little bit less. "I've encountered this alone, that the mighty, multifaceted Creator made the earthling, Adam, a word that comes from Adama, the ground. So it is literally earthling. He made the earthling straightforward and upward aiming with a level approach of undivided integrity. But they themselves have pleaded for and pursued a multitude of fabrications and contrivances. This word is an interesting one, hasab, that relates to both counting and to weaving. That's where you get the fabricate part of, but also to calculating. It spans a wide range of aspects, from deep thinking and ruminating on something to imagining, calculating, reckoning the worth of something, evaluating, planning, devising, plotting, and even inventing. I mean, at the end of the day, hasab centers around a purpose. Sorry, my dog is apparently coughing up a fur ball. Centers around purpose and the inputting of intense effort into achieving that purpose, whether it be in weaving and calculating and ruminating and inventing. You're putting a lot of purpose into this. Okay, well, what does this part have to do with it? Well, it kind of ties into where we are going from here. It ties back into the Proverbs 27 that we're talking about, the verses that come right after iron sharpens iron. And we're, in these verses, we are talking about, the verse we just covered is talking about God made us to have integrity, and we have created all of these fabricated and contrived existences. And this verse would seem to support that, this verse back in Proverbs 27, that God made us to have integrity, and that ultimately is going to be where we find fulfillment. So in verse 18 it says, "He who tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who cares for his master will be honored. As in water, face reflects face, so the heart of man reflects man." Okay, so let's break these verses down real quick. The word here is keeps, tends, shepherds. It's someone who is vigilantly tending to and watching over, the way that you would a flock. Whoever vigilantly tends and watches over a fig tree. And it should be noted that fig trees were highly, highly valued in this part of the ancient world, but they also required incredibly persistent and incredibly meticulous care to keep them alive. So whoever provides that to the fig tree is the one who will eat the fruit that it bears. The Bible is repetitive in this idea that no, you don't have a right to claim your neighbor's property. If he tended the fig tree and he put in the work and you didn't, you don't get to say, well, share and share alike, 50-50 from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs. That is not the message of the Bible. I hate to break it to you. Over and over again, it is, no, a man has a right to the products of his labor. Now, there are also commandments for charity, as in leave the corners of your field unharvested, the corners of your vineyard unharvested, for the widows and the orphans, the voiceless, and the alone are the two connotations of those words, the bereaved, who are going to starve otherwise. But even then, they're not getting a 50-50 share. It's not about wealth equality. They didn't get half the field. It was a safety net so that those who are truly vulnerable don't starve, but they're not entitled to half of the worker's income in order to just make sure that everybody gets equal. That's not a idea that comes out of the Bible. In fact, the Bible is very much the opposite in saying, no, a man is entitled to keep the fruits of his labor. If he worked to plant the field, he worked to cultivate the field, he worked to harvest the field, it's his field, he gets what he gets out of it. You don't have the right to take that from him. Yes, there are the vulnerable among you, and the vulnerable should be taken care of. That is a communal thing in a functioning society, and that is good, and you should do that, and you are commanded to do that. But no, other people do not have a right to, they are not entitled to take your profits away from you. So, the person who tends the fig tree, who puts all of that effort in, they are the one who will eat the fruit it bears. And likewise, it is making a comparison to that, yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice put into taking care of a fig tree, but you get something wonderful out of it. And whoever vigilantly cares for his Lord, the word here is a sovereign. It's authority. It is in some ways, an affectionate term. I don't know if you've watched Outlander. It would kind of be equivalent to the Scottish Lard, someone who you're looking to. Yeah, they have authority. They're in charge. They have the final decision, but it's not in a dictatorial way. It is, they are caring for you. They are providing for you. You look to them for that. They bear an awful lot of responsibility for that. Whoever vigilantly cares for his Lord like a guardian or like a shepherd, watching over him, tending him, will be solidly respected. Just as a face is reflected back accurately as a face in water. Likewise, the hearts or decisions, because it's your decision-making heart, of earthlings honestly reflect who he is. So, you will know them by their fruit. A good tree does not produce bad fruit. A bad tree does not produce good fruit. You will know them by their fruit, in the same way that a face, when you look into water, it's not reflected back to you as a tree, it's reflected back to you as a face. It's accurate. You may not like it, may have some warts, but it's accurate. Your deeds, your actions, your choices, what you choose to do, are an accurate reflection of who you are. Now that can change if it needs to change. But for now, they are an accurate reflection. You are what you do. And that is something that is not said a lot in our society. It's especially something that's not said in church. It's kind of like, no, you can do terrible things and, still have a good heart. And I don't know. I mean, it's true, God forgives us. But not because our heart is so great and our actions weren't really that bad. No, he forgives us in spite of those things. But he tells us over and over again that you are what you do. A good tree does not produce bad fruit. The bad tree doesn't produce good fruit. This just isn't the way it works. You'll know them by their fruit. You are what you do. And that's a little bit more responsibility than a lot of people like to take in the modern era. But nevertheless, it is something that's consistently taught throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, so you'll have to square that with your beliefs however you choose to. But, and this is not something that, it definitely comes from religion, but it's not something that is isolated to religion. Harry Potter is hardly a religious book, and yet you see this reflected there. The Sorting Hat is going to put Harry into Slytherin. It's not making a mistake. Harry would have been a good Slytherin. He actually had a little bit of Voldemort right in him, which probably factored into that. But, he actually would have done well there. In fact, later on, the Sorting Hat reiterates, I stand by my choice. You would have made an even better Slytherin than a Gryffindor. Harry chose Gryffindor. You are what you do. Harry was not good because he didn't have it in him to be bad. No. No. He had it in him. He chose. You are what you do. So you don't have to be religious to understand these things. They're reiterated in the secular all the time. It's just that the secular people don't realize that they are, in fact, parroting a religious idea. And then we skip down from verse 19 to verse 21. So we've talked about men sharpening men, the need for mentorship, the need for that in the context of choosing wisely when it comes to your spouse. We've talked about how your deeds, your actions do reflect who you are. Now comes the test. Verse 21, the crucible is for silver, and the furnace for gold. And each is tested by the praise accorded him. This is a very interesting verse because it has quite a few connotations to it. So the first part is talking about a small refining crucible with a ladle for the dross. It's referring to the instrument that's used for the final delicate refining. So that exists for refining pale silver. And the intense furnace, this is something much bigger and more intense, purifies bright gold. But a man is tested against the boasts that come out of his own big mouth. Or alternatively, he is tested by the praise that he receives from the mouth of others. But it is talking about the praise coming out of the mouth. It's just not clear who the he is. So either way, whether he's tested against his own boasts about what he was going to do, or whether he's tested by the praise that come from the mouth of others, and whether that goes to his head, either way, the test seems to involve keeping a self-aggrandizing arrogance in check. At the end of the day, that winds up being the test of a man, because it is very easy when you have made good choices, when you have done right by your Lord and gotten respect, you took care of him in his old age and you get respect for that, so on and so forth. By the way, none of this being undeserved respect. But even so, it is easy when you have the praise of men to let it go to your head. Or if you're an ambitious man and you haven't done it yet, but you know that you are going to succeed and you are willing to do the work to do it, and you let yourself kind of boast about it in an unrestrained way. The ability to control the instinct towards arrogance is a big test of manhood. The instinct is going to be to go there. And that doesn't mean that you have to temper your ambition. There's nothing wrong with the ambition and the goal of getting to these lofty places. That's wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with being praised by other men and being recognized. You don't need to put on a false modesty. Humility in the Bible is the idea of filling your space. The role that you've been given, you fill that role. You don't shrink to become smaller than it, and you don't exceed it, which involves invading other people's space. You fill your space. That is the strength of humility. Humility kind of implies in the way that a warrior would control himself. as opposed to controlling others. Someone who is humble is able to control and master himself so that he fills his space. So it's not about lessening your ambitions. It's not about denying the praise of others, the respect of others, if it is justly merited. It is purely about the letting it go to your head, which is always a danger. When you are surrounded by praise, or you have envisioned a bright future for yourself and you are boasting away about, you just wait and see how far I get kind of a thing, that is a test of the quality here. You're not there yet, so you might want to wait on your boasts. Your ambition, great, get there. We're rooting for you to get there. It ain't time to boast yet. Likewise, the praise that you receive from others, that's great if you merit it. But you need to keep in mind that you too are mortal. And while you have gifts, and it is perfectly all right to acknowledge the value of those gifts, you have shortcomings too. And you need to remember you are a man and not a god. And it can be hard to do that in the face of other people's praise. That's why you see celebrities or powerful people who are surrounded by sycophants, yes men, brown nosers, you are so wonderful. That's why you see them get to a place where their egos are unbearable. They become kind of the rock star diva that treats everyone like dirt, or they're the supermodel throwing phones at their assistant. And I mean, they've reached a point where they're insufferable because they've been surrounded by that. And that can happen to anyone. That's not a statement on only the bad people have that happen to them. Even people that are good people to start out with, this is just the effect. As in, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, that's a definitive statement. It doesn't make exceptions, except for good people. No, that's just what absolute power does. It corrupts, absolutely. And likewise, intense praise, whether from yourself or from others, does tend towards arrogance. And the test of a man is being able to recognize that, adapt to it, and keep it in check as a warrior would. That doesn't mean you need to make yourself smaller. It means you have to have self-control. These are the aspects that we respect in men. I mean, a Navy SEAL could snap your neck anytime he wanted to. He could kill you with his bare hands. Do we respect a Navy SEAL that goes around doing that, just walking down the street, kill you, kill you, kill you, kill you, see how many people I can kill? I mean, we would not respect that man. In fact, we would lock him up, and we should. That's not what they wind up doing. You don't see Navy SEALs doing that. In fact, they have to exhibit more self-control than your average person, because if someone provokes them, they have the ability to kill that person. They have to control that when they're provoked in a way that some weaker guy who does not even have that ability does not. He can lash out with full force, except his full force is just not strong enough to do physical damage. It's maybe words, it's maybe keyboard warrior stuff, but somebody who has real strength has to have a control that other men do not have in order to keep it in check. And those who have the ability to do it and don't are the ones that we wind up respecting. There is a scene in Gone with the Wind. Old movie. If you're young, you probably have never watched the movie. But there is a scene that I love in it because there is this weakling man, Charles, and out of every actor that I've ever seen, that one makes my skin crawl. I don't know who that actor is that played Charles, but oh, he gives me the creeps. Jeez, man, this guy gives me the creeps. He just makes my skin crawl. He's just, whoa. And he's such a weakling as far as the part he's playing. I have no idea what the actor was actually like, but the guy he's playing is such a weakling. And he tries to play the tough guy at Clark Gable. Clark Gable is listening to all of these men brag about how we're going to beat the Yankees in 2 weeks. Because we're gentlemen, and they're just factory worker rabble. Gentlemen always fight better than rabble. And, he's sitting there going like, you guys, they've got factories to make guns. You've got fields of cotton. We're going to get our asses kicked. Rhett Butler is a pragmatist. And he is just like sitting there listening to these guys just boast and carry on. And when they ask for his opinion, and they ask it in a way that's like, don't you agree with us, Mr. Butler? He's kind of like, no, not really. No. There's not a cannon factory in the whole South. I think you're going to fight very gallantly, and I think you're going to get your asses handed to you. Because talk doesn't win wars, boys. They can blockade our harbors. They can starve us. And all we've got is talk and cotton and slaves. And they don't like it. They don't like hearing somebody put down all the big talk. And so Charles, like I said, dude, I don't know what is up with this actor, but he makes your skin crawl. I mean, I almost can't watch the movie because of him. And he's playing such a weakling. And the weakling has to try to confront, Rhett Butler, how dare you? And he mouths off, comes within an inch of basically challenging him to a duel. And you should know that, Rhett Butler by this point has actually killed a few people in duels. And the look that Clark Gable gives him, I love this look. He looks him up and down as though he is absolutely assessing him. And there is utter disdain, not a I am going to performatively disdain you. It's just an assessment. It's an honest assessment that this is nothing standing in front of me. This is just a nothing. And then his face shifts, and he smiles, and he bows, and I apologize again for all my shortcomings, and walks out. He's just not even worth it. That's what I'm talking about, okay? That there is something that you love about Rhett Butler's character in that moment. You know full well he could kill this little boy. And he doesn't, because it's just not even worth it. He exhibits this amount of control. Okay, we've got one more verse to get into here. And I think it's important to include this verse. First of all, it's only a few verses later. We were almost to the end of that chapter. You go down a couple more verses and start the next chapter. First verse of chapter 28. So it's a running narrative here. But I think in today's world, it is important to go ahead and include this because I see a lot of young men falling prey to this. So it says, the wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Okay, the wicked is a word that basically means the guilty. And it's not talking about guilty as in, I feel guilty. How you feel is not the point. It doesn't mean your feelings don't matter. It's just not the point of what we're talking about right now. We're talking about guilty as in, trial has been had, evidence has been established, you did it, you are guilty. Doesn't matter whether you feel guilty for it. Ted Bundy did not feel guilty, he was guilty. That's the kind of guilt we're talking about here. So we're talking about the guilty criminal. It's based on the word bad. This is the bad person in the wrong. They flee as though there is a need to escape danger, when their pursuers are non-existent. The belief that other people are out to get them, and the people that are out to get them do not exist. This is a very clear statement that paranoia is an indication of guilt. Now, you can be paranoid and not be guilty. All jacuzzis are hot tubs. Not all hot tubs are jacuzzis. Okay, so you can be paranoid because, like, you're schizophrenic or you're bipolar, and it doesn't mean you're guilty of a crime. Okay, you have a mental illness. There are other instances, obviously, as well. But paranoia is an indication of guilt. Yeah, you can be paranoid and it not be coming from guilt, but all guilty people do end up being paranoid about other human beings because they expect others to treat them the way that they treat others. Remember, this is the criminal, the guilty person, the bad person in the wrong who has done wrong to others, who is guilty of crimes against them. But the righteous, and this is talking about someone who takes responsibility for embodying and conforming to the ultimate standard of just integrity. Those people are as confident, certain, and secure as a bold young lion. We see a lot of men today who are listening to other men tell them that they are victims. And I am not here to deny that there has been a lot of destructive things done to men, that they have been demonized, they have been told they're toxic, they have been pushed down. The education system is not very conducive to them. It definitely favors females. They are being kept out of jobs up until recently. A lot of racial stuff was being allowed to be decided on the grounds of race, which is discrimination. I'm not denying that these things happen, okay? The Bible also does not deny that there is injustice in the world. But when your worldview becomes one of paranoia, that the default is that if my life is problematic, it's because others are out to get me. 9 times out of 10, your pursuers are non-existent. This is a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times an indication that you have treated others badly. It just is. If you have judged others based on their race, you think that others are doing the same to you. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. You know, there was that Dartmouth study where they took women, had makeup artists make them up with scars on their face. They wanted to know, are people with facial disfigurements discriminated against in workspaces? And so they had makeup artists scar up their face, and they're going to send them in to get the interview, and they're supposed to report back on how they were treated. And they've been in interviews before. These are beautiful women, so they know how they're normally treated, and they'll be able to report. Did they treat you different than they normally do when they thought that you were scarred up? Except that wasn't actually what they were studying. They wanted to see how much people's perception of the world is colored by what they are looking for. And so right as they show them in the mirror how scarred up they are, they're no longer beautiful, they're scarred. And then right as they're about to head out the door, they're like, oh, wait a minute, let me touch this up. Let me just touch it up. And they removed the scarred part. And so they went into the interview with just normal makeup on, no scar. Every single woman reported, yeah, they treated me awful. Listen to the thing they said. Clear, that was a remark about my scar. They didn't have a scar. So there was no way it could have been about that. And you could say, okay, they're trying to be dramatic. No, the point is that you see what you're looking for. You see what you're looking for. And if what you see is a paranoid perspective across the board, not in one instance, like, okay, in this one instance, somebody was unjust to me, that may very well be. But if that's always the case, The world is out to get you. They, the mysterious they, are trying to keep me down. This group, that group, us versus them, demonize. It does say something about you that you have allowed this worldview to take hold. And at the very least, it does not scream man. Now, you may not like that. You may say, well, it shouldn't. I'm not here to talk about should or shouldn't. I'm telling you as a straight woman, that does not scream man. That is not something I see Charlton Heston doing in some 60s movie. And that man was as man as it gets. And not in a fake bravado, abuse women, pound my chest for the approval of other men kind of way. No, he was a sex symbol to women. And not because he played some sort of wimp. And so the women are like, yay, a male feminist, woohoo. I mean, no, go watch a Chuck Heston movie. He neither beat his chest nor played a woman. That man oozed masculinity out of every pore. And it was one of the sexiest things that has ever been on the screen. I'm telling you this as a straight woman. Take it or leave it. I don't ever see him saying that whatever problems existed in his life are because someone victimized him, the world was out to oppress him. I can't even picture that coming out of his mouth. In fact, if anything, he took a little bit too much responsibility. One of the things I loved in his autobiography, he's telling this story about being overseas for a movie. And he happens to be, he traveled with his family. Smart man. Let's not be overseas for months with some beautiful actress while my wife's at home. Let's not ask for trouble. Let's take the wife with us. Smart man. So he's overseas filming, and he finds out that Rita Hayworth and one of her husbands is local. And a lot of times back then, the studios would set up for you to have dinner with another actor, and they could take the photos and that sort of stuff for publicity. And, it's someone from home. You don't know them. They don't know you. You're not friends. You don't interact. But, you're both from Hollywood. You both do the movies. You're both from America. So, it's someone that you got something in common with in a foreign country. So Charlton Heston and his wife go out with Rita Hayworth and her husband. And Rita Hayworth's husband is just humiliating her relentlessly in front of strangers. Just unbelievable, relentless abuse in front of people you don't even know, to the point that she's in tears. It gets so bad that Charlton Heston's wife says, I'm done. I'm not watching any more of this. And she gets up from the table and she leaves. She can't take it anymore. Goodbye. I'm not watching this. And Charlton Heston has got a choice to make in this moment, because part of him does not want to leave Rita Hayworth alone with this man, even though he doesn't know Rita Hayworth. He's not friends with Rita Hayworth, but she's a woman who's being harassed and abused, not in a physical way, but abused by a man who clearly doesn't have a problem abusing a woman, even a woman that he's brought to tears, that he's humiliating in front of strangers. And Charlton Heston, as a man, does not like the idea of leaving this woman alone with this guy, even if this guy is her husband. It's like, that feels wrong. But on the other hand, his wife is literally walking out the front door. And he also does not want his wife walking around in a city, in a foreign country, without someone with her, trying to get back to their lodging. And he has to choose, which woman are you ultimately responsible to protect, your wife or Rita Hayworth? And he makes the right choice. Ultimately, his first responsibility is to his wife, and he gets up and he takes his wife out of there. And yet, being the man that he was, a man who fought for civil rights, a man who did a lot of things, a very well-read man, a very cultured man, a man who painted and was an artist, a man who was really all of these things embodied in one, and they always came across in his characters, all of those qualities. Still puts in his biography when he's like 80 years old that there was always a part of him who could not forgive himself for leaving Ms. Hayworth in that position. So, I mean, if anything, he took too much responsibility on himself because he saw this as a woman in a vulnerable spot. She didn't have anyone else to protect her. I should have punched that guy in the face and told him to behave himself. Probably would have done him a world of good. You know? And there was a part of him that always felt bad for leaving her in that position. Even though you could say, you know, it's not his business, it's their marriage, her problem to work out. Obviously, his first duty is to his wife. He did the right thing there. And yet, as a man with moral character, he felt bad that he was the only man in that situation with moral character that she could turn to. And he left her in that situation. Not that he was wrong to do it, but it weighed on him. Okay, I don't see that man saying that the decisions that he made in his life are someone else's fault. Now, like I said, if you're talking about an individual instance and you can tell me who the they is that wronged you and you can give me some evidence that they did, you're talking about a specific boss who told you, yeah, you're qualified for the promotion, but, you know, in order to make the DEI numbers work, I'm giving it to, okay, like if you can tell me that happened, that's legit. I'm not saying injustice doesn't happen in the world. But when the excuse for everything in your life, your girlfriend, your job, your behavior, your, is everyone else, and they're all out to get you, and it's all a conspiracy, and the Jews are somehow behind all of it, I'm just here to tell you that does not scream man. You may not like hearing that, but at least I'm telling you the truth. I mean, I could lie to your face and say I find that to be so masculine and then walk right on home. How does that do you any good? I mean, if you tell some domineering woman, I love me a domineering woman. I love a woman who just like emasculates me in public because it's so feisty, it's so freaking attractive. And you tell her that and you go home and like, dear God, that woman. What good does that actually do her? She heard what she wanted to hear, but it was lies. And so she'll keep doing the very thing that is going to cause the reaction that you just had to her to happen in everyone else. Lies are not productive. At least I'm telling you the truth. There is nothing masculine about the paranoid, they're out to get me attitude. Women are already vulnerable. You know, and the feminists are going to get mad at me. But women are already vulnerable. Men are bigger. Men are stronger. In societies where men choose to declare that women have no rights, guess what? Women have no rights. They can't take my rights away. Watch them. How are you going to stop them, sweetie? You have rights because good men are willing to fight the bad ones to ensure that you do. Not going to make me popular for saying the truth, but once again, I can tell you a lie that's going to be counterproductive, or I can tell you the truth. Women have rights in countries where good men stood up against bad men and said, leave her alone. She has a right to a vote. She has a right to a say. She has a right to her opinion. Back off. Take your hands off of her, or you're going to be messing with me. Woman can say the same thing, and the man's going to laugh at her, and worse. These are the realities of life, kids. We can pretend otherwise, but these are the realities of life. Women are vulnerable. We need good men to protect us from bad men. I mean, I'm sorry if that shatters your worldview, but these are the realities. Yeah, we need men who are willing to go to frickin' war to keep bad men from doing bad things. Those men have every ounce of my respect, every ounce of my gratitude. We need men as cops who arrest the thug that is trying to mug you, rape you, whatever. We need firemen who will charge into a frickin' burning building and carry your limp body out of there before you die. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings to hear this. But yeah, women are vulnerable. And good men are critical to society. So stop attacking your protectors. Now sure, the bad ones, go for them. And you will find the good men right there with you. But this is the reality, and I live in reality, and I am secure enough in my reality to not need to make a fantasy out of it. If I'm being attacked on the street, I do not stand a chance unless a strong man comes over and makes the attacker stop. I'm disabled. I don't stand a chance. That's the reality, sweetie. That reality doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me less of a human being. It makes me grateful for the kind of man who will do it. And when I say that about myself, it is with the same honesty that I'm telling young men out there right now. Women are already vulnerable. They may puff themselves up like a blowfish or expand themselves like a cat in order to cope with their vulnerability, but they're vulnerable. And what attracts a woman to a man is the fact that he's not, at least not to that same degree. So when a man forfeits what he brings to the table by, I can't be responsible for my decisions, they are out to get me, they control me, they keep me down, they victimize me. Please explain to me what you're bringing to the table that makes my world feel solid. Okay, a woman, what she brings to the table for a man is she softens his world. She brings the beautiful, the tender, the vibrant, the home to his masculine, efficient world. What a man brings to a woman's world is the solid, the stable, the security, the safety, part of a home. Together, those things make a home. When you go into a home, you don't want it to be a museum. You want it to be a home. And when you go into a home, you don't want it to be a tent. You want it to be a place where you feel safe, where the doors lock and you're okay. This is what men and women give each other, people. And there's all different versions of women and different versions of men, and I'm not asking anybody to be somebody that they're not and to cosplay. There are different ways to bring the soft, the tender, the feminine. There are different ways to bring the secure, the safety, the stability. But these are the things that have to be brought in some form or another, and anyone that's telling you otherwise is lying to you. At least I'm telling you the truth. And these are instinctual things, okay? It's true, women may have different levels of what makes them feel insecure around a man. But here's the part that's always true. If they don't feel secure with you, you are out of there, my dude. If it's kind of like, I need to protect him, If you think the friend zone is your problem, the friend zone ain't your problem. That's your problem. And I mean, the reverse is true. If a guy is kind of like, yeah, I need to be the soft and compassionate one because she's like a frickin' Terminator. Yeah, he ain't putting a ring on that either. And everyone can be mad at me now because, I've said the unsayable, but if the unsayable happens to be true and therefore you can use it in life, better to hear the unsayable, Men need each other. They need mentoring. They need to learn how to be men from men who have been successful at being men. And they need women to quit being so frickin' insecure that they can't handle that. Well, what do you mean there are no girls allowed? You can't go to see the Odyssey without letting the women come. Bullshit, they can't. Right? Stop being some 10-year-old bitchy girl, okay? Could you please be women? When we talk about the fact that there are no men in the world right now, it's not 100% true. There are some. There are a lot less than we need. That is true. And there aren't really women either. There are the boss bitches that are men adjacent who think that being a woman is to be a broken man. A broken man who needs to find a way to be a better man than the man, because there's no value in being a woman. Well, by that standard, I have no value, but you know what? I don't respect that standard. I don't think it's true. Or you have these little bitchy girls whose daddies told them they were princesses who could do no wrong, that think that everything about them is sugar and spice and everything nice, and therefore it's not even possible for them to be in the wrong or for them to be unreasonable. I mean, the fact that the man expects them to bring anything to the table is ridiculous. They got a long list of what they think they got coming. And it's so childish. It is so childish on both sides here. We need women who are secure enough in being women that they don't need to cosplay as men. That doesn't mean they can't work and can't do what they want to do. Do what you want to do, okay? I'm not talking about you have to fit this exact role. I'm saying stop cosplaying. Stop telling me that some 5'3", 110-pound girl is just as able to be a firefighter and carry a 6'4", 250-pound man out of a burning building as a man is. Okay, I live in a world where there's such a thing called physics. No, she's not. And I'm not for lying about things just to make someone feel good, because you know what? The man who gets left in there to burn, his wife and kids aren't going to feel good. We don't need any more of the fake world. We need more of the real world. Doesn't mean you have to cosplay in very, very narrow roles. But it does mean stop cosplaying as things that we all know are lies, okay? A man is not a woman is not a man. That's okay. They don't have to be. We don't need to be the same. You know what? As a woman, one of the things that I love best about men is that they're not women. And out of the men I know, the thing that they actually love the most about women is that they're not dudes. If that was not true, we'd all be gay. Okay? I don't know when we became so fragile that even the basic truths became so earth-shattering that now they are unsayable. To who? To who? I've not met the fragile people that supposedly make that statement true. Okay? I'm sure they're out there. I think half of it is performance. And I'm sure there's some of them that genuinely mean it, but even they are better off for not having that intensified and coddled. A lot of times the things that you think are going to shatter you in life, you encounter them and you go, oh, well, I mean, that wasn't enjoyable. I wouldn't have chosen it myself, but look at me. I'm still breathing. It's okay. And that's honestly the best thing that can happen to you a lot of the times, is to realize I survived that. You know what? The sun set, the sun rose. The earth continues to spin, the seasons come and the seasons go. And that actually did not cause the apocalypse. I'm stronger than I thought. I can survive it. You know, I heard a guy say once that it's terrifying to be punched in the face when you're learning to box, because, I mean, like, nobody wants to get hit in the face. And then you realize, after it happens, that, I mean, it's not great. Nobody's like, ooh, punch me in the face, I love it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, my face is not made of glass. I'm okay. I mean, it's not a kiss, but my face is not made of glass. I'm okay. And then you're less scared of the world. This is true ideologically as well. And so, you know what? I'm going to keep saying the things, along with lots of other people who say these things as well and say them better than I do. But I'm going to keep saying the things that need to be said because they're true. And the only way to build your life is on what's true. You can build it on illusions, but it collapses. Illusions are just mist. You know, Jews have a saying that I love, that a lie has no legs to stand on. And that's why it collapses. You can create a lie, you can set it out there, you can start to put things on top of it, but it has no legs to hold it up and it just collapses. You actually need things to be true. Because that's the only stuff that can hold weight in the world. And most people out there are fully capable of hearing the truth. They may disagree with it. We may have different perspectives on it. There may be different applications. The way that you choose to live as a woman may be a different version of womanhood than I live. Same thing with men. No two men are exactly alike. We don't have to be cookie cutouts of each other. Okay, that would make the world a really boring place. And at the same time, there are things that are universally true. And it actually would do both of the sexes a lot of good to start listening to what the other sex is saying. Because like I said, if you're a dude that's looking for another dude, then what dudes think is masculine is what you should be listening to. If you're a dude, however, that is looking for a chick, it might actually be important to find out what she finds masculine. And I don't mean, like, what does she politically claim to find masculine? Like when she says that Tim Walz is a model of masculinity. Okay, that, boys and girls, is called a lie. There is not a single person on the planet that finds Tim Walz masculine. Nobody. And likewise, women. Not that you need to be listening to Andrew Tate or something, but yeah, when women tell you what a woman is, that she's the boss bitch, she's the executive in the boardroom, and she's the one who just tells her man she doesn't need him any more than a fish needs a bicycle. Well, if you're looking for a chick, then sure, listening to what chicks find to be feminine, great for you. If you're looking for a man, you might want to hear what actually comes across as feminine in their way of thinking. Like I said, that doesn't mean listening to an Andrew Tate who's like, I want a woman who will let me beat her and strangle her and regularly call her a whore in public. Okay, that's not a man. That's a 14-year-old boy who never found out what a man is, and is about to go to prison for trafficking minors. Like, I'm not saying respect that. And I'm not telling the men to respect, some feminist who abuses men. But I'm talking about serious men listening to real women and serious women listening to real men. The idea that it's all or nothing is a major problem in our society. No, you don't have to listen to some unserious clown like Andrew Tate, who is the actual, like, real-life version of Yul Brynner, except Yul Brynner was playing a character, and it was charming, and it was funny because he had this glint in his eye, and the audience was in on the joke. Andrew Tate is not joking. He's just a frickin' clown. I must bare my chest, strut in, hands on hips, and tell everyone, down, down, down! No one's head shall be higher than mine, because I'm just that frickin' fragile. And dudes, like, if you listen to him, I am telling you the truth. That's how it reads to women. And women, you know what? When you have some tiny little woman, when you've got some feminist saying, yes, Elliot Page makes a perfectly believable Achilles, some 5'3", 110-pound woman who has cut off her breast is believable as Achilles. Okay, that's about as believable to dudes as the rest of it. Can we grow up, please? All right. I don't believe that there are that many people out there who are fragile enough to need this. I think we've told each other that these fragile people exist, and therefore all of us must be this fragile in order not to damage the people that theoretically are this fragile. You know what? Our species has evolved from the survivors of our species. I think you'll be okay. Ours were the ancestors that survived Genghis Khan and famines and brutal wars and all kinds of predators and tribal fighting and all of that. You are the descendants of the survivors of all of that. You'll be okay. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found something interesting. If you heard something that you think someone that you know might be interested in hearing, please feel free to share it. I always appreciate when people do that. And I hope you come back again next week. We'll be talking about something else. And most of all, I hope you have a good week out there, my friends.